Hello and welcome to BikeWale, and this is the TVS X. Now as we see it, X is a test bed of whatever nice, good that we will see from TVS in its future products. Things like design, technology, modularity, engineering, all of that we will see trickle down in future products, whether they're electric or ICE. And therefore it becomes really crucial to see what the X offers in terms of riding experience, in terms of overall experience as a product. This one should be an interesting one. Now, one of the standout bits about the X has to be its design. It's not a new design in terms of we're not seeing it for the first time. We saw it as a concept in 2018 at the Auto Expo as the Creon concept, and almost all of it has come into the X as well. Now, this is a beautiful blend of good design, proportions, and layering, which adds that bit of technicality into the design. So if you look at the front apron, it looks sporty. It's got that, if you've seen old scooters, sporty scooter called the Italjet Dragster, I think. So it's got that kind of sporty front up front. And then you've got layering all around of paneling. So it's all, of course, plastic, but the paneling is done so nicely that it looks very futuristic. And it's the proportions and how it all comes together between the wheels that makes it look really stand out. Now, apart from the apron, of course, the split seat looks really good too. And then you've got this spine, which is a perimeter frame, a modular perimeter frame, which again adds that bit of crossoverness, or should we say what you get in Thailand, the step-throughs, that kind of thing, but of course in a lot more sportier package or aura. What's more, the attention to detail all around also impresses. You've got to look at the levers, you've got to look at these, I don't know what you call them, but you see this in race bikes. It's a racing extension so that two handles don't, if you hit somebody, your handlebars don't get entangled. So these bits, plus you look at the new switch gear cube, and it's these small details all around that bring that Tron factor. And by Tron factor we mean something that there's a movie called Tron which uses these elements, lines, to add that technical or futuristic or computer animated thing into the mix. And it's the details on this scooter that also impress, and you can see some of that on the mirror, you can see some of that here again around the neck area. And overall, the more you look at the scooter, you don't really find it busy, but you discover new, nice, tasty elements all around. And so that is, I think, a job well done. And if this is what we're going to see in the future from TVS, I think TVS is on really good footing. We also like that TVS has used blue to accentuate some bits like the chain cover, the subframe, and the brake calipers. These again give the X an air of technical prowess. The X is built around a modular twin spar frame TVS likes to call skeleton. It has three parts: the main aluminium twin spar frame, a light alloy subframe on which the seats are mounted, and a lower cradle that holds the battery. Now, depending on the body type, the performance, the range TVS is looking at, both the subframe and the cradle can be modified. Therefore, it opens up a whole world of possibilities given the modularity of this platform. In the X's case, this is suspended on telescopic forks up front and an offset rear monoshock. The wheels are 12 inches, both front and rear, and both ends also run single discs with one piston calipers as the braking hardware. The X does get single channel ABS nonetheless. In terms of features, both the brake levers are adjustable. The X gets LED lights all around, with bending lights thrown in for good measure. There is storage under the rider's seat, and of course, you get a tab for instrumentation. The tab really is X's party trick, and it has a sea of functions. And when connected to the phone app, it makes for a comprehensive connectivity suite. As for the powertrain, the TVS X comes with two 2.2 kilowatt battery packs, which take the overall output to 4.4 kilowatt. The battery powers a motor with a peak power output of 11 kilowatt, but it's rated at about 7.5. The motor then transmits the power to the rear wheel via single-speed transmission. TVS claims a top speed of 105 km per hour, which we did see on the speedo when riding on TVS's test track. The 0 to 100 km per hour run is dispatched from a standstill in a claimed 4.5 seconds, which again seems plausible given how the X feels when accelerating full bore in Zonic mode. And finally, when ridden with a gentle right wrist, TVS claims a range of 140 kilometers, which of course we can only test once we get the scooter back in Mumbai. Now when it comes to riding the X, there are lots of things to like about it, and it begins with the seating ergos. Firstly, the seat at 770 mm is pretty accessible. It's also, I guess, one of the reasons why TVS chose to go with 12-inch wheels instead of 14 to give it a more accessible seat height, apart from, of course, a bigger or a larger storage volume under the seat. But once you're seated, you'd find that the distance of the handlebar from the seat is actually quite open, more like a motorcycle than scooters, which are cramped, and therefore it makes for more comfortable, roomier, and given the width of the handlebar, it feels more natural and should help with leverage when you want to change directions. Now the seat itself is also pretty large, it's well shaped, and when you put your foot up, there is still some amount of support that it offers towards the back, maybe not so much right under the thigh, but no real worries on that front. Floorboard is not very low, and it is flat. We've seen something like this on the Aerox where you've got a spine, but on the Aerox it starts to move up towards the back. So when you move your feet at the back, you get a sportier riding position in that sense. That doesn't happen here because it's absolutely flat. So the best place to place your feet is in the center or slightly ahead, and you get a more neutral seating. Now we've been riding around all day, and really it feels comfortable. It's only when we went around corners that we thought that if we could move it a little behind, and if this was slightly higher up, it would have felt more natural. But it's more nitpicking than a real problem really. But overall, like we said, the seating ergos are pretty good, and if you want to use it for commute, I think it should not be bothersome even if it's hour-long commute. So that's a job well done. The feel-good bit about the electric scooter continues when you start riding. The throttle response is well judged in all three modes. It is a tad lazy in the initial or eco mode and quite perky in the sportier sonic mode. But the throttle calibration remains well judged and easy to modulate no matter what mode you're riding in. The motor meanwhile is audible, and TVS has tried to mask it with drone-like noises at lower speeds that come from speakers under the frame. Neither noise feels bothersome. And once you go past 50 km per hour, there's honestly very little one can hear in terms of motor noise, at least when you're riding. The overall experience of riding the X is of a polished, vibe-free, refined, but peppy scooter. Performance-wise, it'll hit 100 km per hour without struggle. And in the time we rode it, we had the throttle pinned almost all the time, but even then, it didn't throw a tantrum courtesy overheating. Again, the throttle response, the power delivery, and the overall riding experience of the X feels lovely but natural. Now the frame on the X, of course, is a modular frame, which means that it has now been applied to this scooter, or as TVS likes to call it, a crossover. But the same frame can also be used on a motorcycle, which means your perimeter frame on top can be widened to give you that motorcycle width, and of course the rear subframe can change depending on what body style you opt for. Now clearly, with that in mind, it's no surprise that the X actually handles around corners quite well. You've got regular telescopic forks up front, you've got an offset monoshock at the back with preload adjustability, and you've got 12-inch wheels both front and rear. It is also on the heavier side if you look at conventional i-scooters weighing around 120 kgs or thereabouts, and it's not really short on wheelbase. So all these things indicate that the X should be a little ponderous, a little not as agile as you'd expect or as you'd think a motorcycle to be. But it is actually quite agile, and the inputs that you need for it to change directions, you require very little effort, and once it starts rolling it actually feels a lot lighter. And we've gone around, there's only really one long corner and then a short left, and that right corner is a little bumpy, and you can feel the length of the scooter around those bumps a bit, with the rear moving sometimes. But overall the damping is pretty flat, so it's not very fast, so it settles, and you can feel that sort of stability, you can feel that sort of alertness whenever you want to change directions with the handlebar. So it feels like a sportier scooter even when you take it around corners, courtesy of course this frame and how TVS has worked its magic around the suspension. And but that really shouldn't be a surprise, because that's something we've seen TVS do for most of its two-wheelers. When it comes to dynamics, they do get it right. Now let me tackle this with three questions or three answers. First, do we like what we see as TVS's future, given that we said that this will be a test bed of, for new products that will have these features that we've seen on the X? And I think answer to that is yes. We really like what we see. We like that huge tab touchscreen system that is on there, and it is compatible to ICE as well, so we won't be surprised if it comes on other scooters or other TVS offerings in the future, ICE or electric. So that's a good step. Then of course the chassis and the overall dynamics, of course that's impressed us as well, and that's, like we said a little earlier, not surprising because TVS knows how to nail that. Then of course there is design, and on the design front again we like what we see, and the more time you spend with it you realize that there are really good elements in there, something that I think TVS had lost with the Ronin, and also to an extent with maybe the RTR 310, which seems a little busy. This somehow doesn't seem busy, even though there is so much layering on this design. It's a very desirable design. And in terms of tech, this is a modular platform. You have two battery packs right now. You can choose to have one huge battery pack. By you I mean TVS, and that can expand the battery capacity. You can also have a different number of packs, you can have different sizes, and depending on what body style you choose, if it's a motorcycle you have more space, you need to fill up more, you can add more packs. So all that just goes to show that there is a lot of thought which has come and which will help in the future. Plus all of this has been executed well. So the motor, yes, you can hear it, but what they've done with the Tron-like noises from the speaker that come out, again, blends it really well. So what is in store for the future from TVS offerings? I think the X as a test bed shows that it is something to look forward to, and TVS is on good footing there. Now, of course, the second question is, how is it as a scooter, as an electric scooter? Again, if we take pricing out of the way, it is a wonderful thing in terms of it has the seating ergos right, it looks nice, it has decent performance. Yes, it doesn't have a lot of range in that sense, and it's not like the quickest scooter or the scooter with the highest top speed, but is extremely usable. At least that's what we felt on the track. Maybe ride quality wise, maybe we might find something off, but right now as a product, as a scooter, maybe not a practical scooter given the spine, but something to take you from A to B for somebody younger, or somebody even who's looking at it as an option from a motorcycle, because it gives you that kind of feel, those dynamics, that braking, all of that is there. So as a scooter or a crossover, I think that again TVS has done well. And of course there are some finish issues all around which can be corrected. I don't know whether this is a pre-production or not, but we hope that those things are given the price of the scooter. But overall, as a scooter, as a crossover for commute functions, I think it's well sorted. And now of course is the price. For 2.5 lakhs, this is not enough scooter. Now when you look at that price, you generally associate, when it's an electric with increased price, the least you expect is more range. You expect more performance. And when you compare it to Ola, for instance, which is cheaper, And that scooter does a lot of things that the X doesn't in terms of outright figures, performance, range, top speed, things like that. But it does a lot of stuff that this does. Yes, it doesn't look as good and it doesn't have the same sort of maybe technology or modularity. But as a scooter, as an electric scooter to buy today, at this price point, I think it is really pricey and very difficult to justify. In that sense, it has headwinds that it has to go through. But of course, it would be a good fit for somebody who is an early adopter, somebody who understands or is mature enough, who's moving from, let's say, a motorcycle, who's ridden all of that and knows what he's getting into, then yes, maybe they will pay the 2.5 lakh that the scooter demands. But on the face of it, this is a pricey offering, a good offering, a nice to ride scooter, but pricing somehow to me is just not justified.